Suzanne's Paparazzi. Suzanne's Paparazzi Jewelry, 24/7 shopping available. 160920 is the code. Show her some love, like she showed us.
Hello and welcome to another episode of C2C Rankem. I am the host, Big B, along with my co-host, halfway around the world, Tim Hendricks. How you doing?
I'm doing good. And hopefully this show goes off as good as the two I saw this morning.
Oh yeah, morning your time last night. If you guys haven't caught it, go back, watch Kicking It with Ace and Mess Around. We had our good old buddy Isaiah back. And then, of course, Four Bros, which we won't repeat a lot of things that was said on there because that is a late night, overnight show. As once you watch it, but it was a fun times. But tonight we're gonna rank some things like we normally do. This topic categories have to do with the NCAA tournament that's coming up. I think Selection Sundays. This Sunday, I believe.
This Sunday, I believe.
Yeah. So everybody likes it. It's one of the most bet tournaments, sporting events around, I think. So with that being said, Tim, let's start with the women. We normally don't start with the women. So let's start with the women's top 5 NCAA teams. And for both men and women, they had to have won the tournament to be considered. So let's start with the top 5. You're number 5.
My number 5 is the team that stopped my number 1 team streak, and it's the 2005 Baylor Bears. I believe that's the Brittany Griner Baylor Bears, undefeated. I think they won that thing. I think they won that thing wire to wire. That was a squad that was scary. And if they had ever gotten their mind together before that season, they may have won multiples. But that team was scary to watch. And I remember I think they played UConn early in the season and beat them like in the preseason, before conference play, and what they did to UConn. It was probably one of the games of the decade between UConn and Baylor.
Yeah, no, that was a good rivalry there. Those games. For me, I'm going to go with the team that went back-to-back, 83, 84, and I think they just recently won it this past year. That's the Southern California team. They're for those 2 years, they were 60 wins and 6 losses, so they're pretty dominant for the gals there. So the first team to go back to back for the women. So your number 4.
Well, we're going to start it off right off the top. Your number 5 is my number 4. And the funny thing is, what a lot of people don't remember about that USC team was the fact is it was a family thing. You found out, you learned about Reggie Miller later on, but that USC, the 83-84 team, you had the better of the Millers. You had Cheryl Miller, and Cheryl Miller could play some basketball. And
yeah, she could.
I think Nancy Lieberman might have been the coach of that squad. I may be mistaken, but every time I hear about the 1983, 1984, the back-to-backs, like you said, with USC, all I ever hear is Cheryl Miller. And I think they did that documentary about I think there was that documentary between the Pacers and the Knicks on ESPN. I think it was one of those 30 for 30s or something. And and Cheryl always sat there and said, "I'm the better Miller. You'll never be better than me."
I guess. All right. Our Sarge is starting to fire some bullets there. I guess Tim and Isaiah decided to win the same team. Yeah. So, all right. My number 4 team, 2018 Notre Dame Fighting Irish, the Lady Irish. They were 34-3. And I'll get to another team that knocked them off from going back to back. So my 2018 Irish. You're number 3.
My number 3 is not your number 4. But I think this was about the time when this squad really started pushing itself over the top and really started making its name to replace Tennessee as the top women's team in all of women's college basketball. You got 3 straight years. You got 2013, 2016, University of Connecticut Huskies. I think this was another one of those that, if I think Tennessee and Connecticut played 3 times in that span, and whoever it just seemed like, Gino Ariema had Pat Summitt's number for those seasons, and yeah, it's not going to be the last we hear of UConn on my list.
No, not mine either. So my number 3 team for the women is the team that stopped Notre Dame from going back to back 18 and 19, and that's the 2019 Baylor team, 37-1. I mean, 1 loss. I didn't look to see who the 1 loss was, but the almost go perfect is unheard of. I know there's teams that went perfect, and we'll get to those later on my list a little bit. So that's my number 3 team. Your number 2 team.
To me, I think one of the greatest, definitely the second greatest runs in NCAA history in basketball, but probably one of the best ones on my list. It's one of the best ones, and it really put Tennessee basketball on the list, on the map, and really put Pat Summitt as probably one of the best college coaches, both men's and women's, in history. And that's the 96-98 Tennessee Lady Vols. I hate that team, but I gotta respect what they did.
Now, do you hate the team or you hate the school? I mean,
I hate the school. I really hate the school.
Yeah. For me, my number 2 team, you said it. You stole it from me. Tennessee, the 96-98 team. I mean, to go 114 in that span and wrap off 3 titles in that span, and if we probably dug deeper, they probably could have 4 or 5. I mean, like you said, that put Pat Summitt on the map. Kind of curious to see what your number 1 team is.
My number 1, and this is the one I really paid attention to because it at the time it was either Lisa Leslie or it was going to be Rebecca Lobo in the early 2000s. And to me, I really like watching UConn play, and UConn was such a strong team, and this is what really put UConn on the map outside of the men's team. But Gino Ariema had Rebecca Lobo, and he used her to her fullest. And I mean, if it wasn't Tennessee, it was going to be UConn for like 8-10 years for the longest time. And if whoever won the UConn Tennessee matchup going into the tournament, even before regular season, that was the team that was going to win the national championship. And I've got the 2002 to 2004 UConn Huskies.
Okay. Nope, I got you there. For me, my number 1 team, they had a span from 2009 to 2016. They missed 2 years where they did not win, if my math is correct. So I got UConn there. 2009 to 2010, then 11-12 they missed out. And then 13 through 16, they went 229-5.
Yeah.
If I remember right, by looking at the stats, I think they had 3 undefeated seasons in that span.
I want to say that because I think Gino's had 6 6 or 7 undefeated teams.
Yeah. So that team. I couldn't. Outside Rebecca Lobo, like you said, I couldn't name any UConn players. But
Well, remember they had Diana Taurasi
yep,
there in
yep,
that period. About I want to say in the 2009 season,
yep,
I think that was Taurasi.
yep. So that's our top five women's. Had a couple that I didn't think we'd have the same, but again, the women's tournament has only been around since what, 82, 83?
I think it was 81. I want to say
81? Okay.
Yeah. And the funny
Right.
thing is, I don't know if you got a chance to see it. It was like ESPN has been showing on Sports Center. I want to say Texas Wesleyan
Okay.
about being the first all black college, and they ended up losing to, I think they ended up losing to USC in '84.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, it just I'm like, I thought it was really weird that we had picked that, and all of a sudden they're really pulling the Vivian Stringer's 83 or 84 Texas Wesleyan.
Yeah. All right, let's move on the other side of the bracket there. Let's go top men's team. Now, this one been around for a while, so it'd be interesting to see what we did here. So you're number 5.
I think this is the last undefeated team to ever win the championship. I might be wrong. Yeah, now you're gonna look.
Yeah.
I think, and when as soon as this team started winning won that national championship, and everybody started wearing these T-shirts like they'd never existed before in their lives, and you've got a coach like Jerry Tarkanian, and you look at him, and you got Stacey Augmon, you've got Stacey Augmon, Greg Anthony, Larry Johnson. You look at that team, and they were just stacked. They were, to be honest, your front court three, your 5 players were in the NBA. They played unbelievable basketball. They played fast-paced basketball, but they played a version of playground basketball, and they were so fun to watch. And that's the 1990 UNLV Running Rebels.
No, they did not go undefeated.
They lost
5.
5?
According to my quick math here, looking up quick, and I didn't even put them on my team because I kind of overlooked them. The last team that I see is the 76 Indiana team.
Oh, okay.
No, I could be wrong there. Like I said, just quick looking over. Anyways, my number 5 team is the first team to go back to back as I was looking at this. So if I missed somebody that went back to back beforehand, I am sorry. And now that I look at it, I think I did. Yeah, I did. I screwed up. So anyways, this team only lost.
It's my number 1 team, isn't it?
No, this team only lost 1 game in the 2 years that they won it. And that's the San Francisco team, 55 and 56.
That's the Wilt Chambers. That's the Wilt Chamberlain year. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, they lost 1 game. So, and 2 titles. So good for them. Number 4 for you.
For some reason, to me, and I think it's not about records for me on this one.
Yeah.
For a bunch of these, it was the fact is of what they were. It kind of ties into the Cinderella stories and what they were able to do for me. Except for my number 1 team. I remember the 1985 game between Villanova and Georgetown, and Villanova walked into that game as an 8 seed. To this day, still the lowest ranked team to ever win a national championship. So that pretty much spoils what my number 4 is. But it was one of those seasons. As soon as you saw the 85 Georgetown Hoyas with Patrick Ewing, everybody had them crowned from week 1 as the as the national champions, and like this is why you play the game, as Dennis Green says. It's not Dennis Green. Shut up. I already know it's not. That's I'm going to get this one wrong. Herm Edwards. But to see what Villanova did, and it was amazing to see how they went through that tournament, and to have Ed Pinckney have such a breakout game, and it happened to be in the national championship game, and you got this superstar team in Georgetown. And the first thing is you make a boneheaded mistake at the end of the game by throwing the ball to Villanova. Get that? It just seems like you didn't know how to be behind in games, and you didn't know how to cope with it. And Villanova did exactly what you're supposed to do.
Yeah. No, that's a good one there. My number 4 team is the one I had my years wrote down wrong. Oklahoma State, 45 and 40-16. They are the first teams to go back to back. So that's my number 4 team. They were 59 and 6. That
I'm trying to remember who's on that team.
I didn't look to see the team up. I just kind of looked at the division winners and kind of try to relive those moments. But of course, I wasn't around for those first 2 teams. So your number 3 team.
My number 3 team has, if I'm not mistaken, two NBA Hall of Famers on it, and one absolute stud of a power forward that gets looked and gets forgotten that he was on this team. Dean Smith had a team, I think, was number 1 preseason. One of the few teams that I've actually had that were number 1 from the regular season to the end. And when I think the superstar player was still a freshman. Okay. Yeah, I'm thinking he's either a freshman or a sophomore, because it's funny because you think of Sam Perkins, and Sam Perkins I think left the year after James Worthy left, and Jordan left the year after Sam Perkins left. But that team was a monster. That team could have played against half the NBA squads and been 500.
Yeah.
Just because of Worthy and Jordan. That Dean Smith knew how to harness what he had with those 3 players, and he proved it with that 82 team. Oh yeah. By the way, if you don't know where Jordan went to, he went to North Carolina.
Yep, North Carolina. No, that was definitely a good team. A good stud team. My number 3 team is the team that you are wearing, the 06-07 Florida Gators, 68-11. Like we say, it's always hard to go back to back, and NCAA tournament's no joke about it. So, except for one team that I think we kind of discussed. I think we know who our number 1 is. But so your number 2 team.
No, my number 2 team, they did ESPN. I like going back to ESPN and their documentaries.
They've been doing a lot of good documentaries lately.
Yeah, they did, and they did one really good one. I think it's called Survive and Advance, and it's about a team just down the road from Chapel Hill and Jim Valvano and the 83 North Carolina State Wolfpack. This was a team that wasn't supposed to make the playoff. It wasn't supposed to make the tournament. The team had to, and if you haven't seen the documentary, North Carolina State, the only way that they were going to get in is if they had won the division tournament, had won the conference championship tournament. And in order to do that, you had to keep winning to survive. And it's exactly what they did. And then they turned around and beat the team that should have been the number one team should have been the team to beat it all, and that was the team that known as Phi Slamma in Houston.
Yep.
Ralph Sampson, Hakeem Olajuwon, Clyde Drexler. Again, you got three guys that are in the Hall of Fame, and they don't have a championship amongst them. Well, they do in the NBA, but not in the NCAA.
Yep. All right, my number 2 team probably has one of the most in college basketball, one of the best to ever play the game. I think he holds a lot of records. In the pro level, guy was overrated. But that's Christian Laettner's led 91-92 Duke team. Again, went back-to-back. Won one game here in Minnesota, I believe it was. They went 66-9 in the 2 years. So, yeah, I mean, but what can you say? Duke was Duke back then. So. All right, you're number 1, and I think, we talked beforehand, I think we got the same number 1.
I think if we make this list and if we don't have this as our number 1, we don't really know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
I think the team that beat the end of the streak, I think, might have been Marquette in 74. Al McGuire, 74, Marquette. I think that was the Warriors at the time. Now they're the Golden Eagles. Yeah.
No, it was not.
It wasn't Marquette. Marquette was what, 75?
No, it was North Dakota State. North Carolina State. I'm sorry.
Carolina State.
Yep.
Okay. I don't remember who's on that team, but we all know who was on UCLA in the from 1967 to 73. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Bill Walton. I'm telling you, John Wooden. I'm like, when you go to college and basically have to relearn how to tie your shoes the UCLA Bruins way, you have to do things the UCLA Bruins way, and they break you down, and you go from 67 to 73, I believe, without losing a game. Yeah, that's a scary almost, that's a half decade. That's over a half decade.
Yeah. No, and I'm with you. I got that 64 to 73, and you can even throw the 75 team in there. So they missed 1 year. 291 and 10 in that span. I mean, what do you do when you see UCLA on your schedule at that time? It's just like, okay, we got a 20% chance of winning. They're going to roll us. So what do we do? So.
Well, and the funny thing is, everybody remembers, and everybody remembers Abdul-Jabbar being there, but he was only there from 71 to 70 or 70 to 73.
Well, and that's the thing is, you went, back then you went to college, you went all 4 years. I mean, there wasn't too many people that jumped ship after 3 years.
Unless I think back in the time they had something called the hardship clause, and if your family needed you to jump to the NBA or the ABA at the time, you had to have that hardship clause. But but Milwaukee getting Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, at Lou Alcindor at the time, and then I love how, if you ever get a chance to see some of the information, some UCLA stuff about that time, about how Bill Walton's like, we lost, we didn't make the national championship game on my watch when I was the starting center, but that UCLA Bruins team was stacked from 64 to 73.
What year was the Fab Five?
Fab Five was 90.
Oh, okay. All right.
It's like 90. It was the, I want to say 91, 92.
91, 92 Duke year. Okay.
Yeah. And
I can't remember if it was the 89 team or not.
They lost the one game. The one they lost that they had to take away was the one they played against North Carolina, because the North Carolina one was
93.
Where Chris Webber unintentionally calls timeout. That's the 93 they had to they 93 they removed, and the 92 I think they removed. Yep.
92, 93 they went back to back as losers.
Right, and then they had to remove it because Chris Webber was ineligible.
Yeah. I don't think they removed that one. I don't know.
They didn't remove the 92. I know they removed the 93.
No,
No?
they don't have no asterisks next to it like they do another game. But
You mean
so
like
anyways,
Barry Bonds?
yeah, yeah. No, there
That's
was actually one in here, the Louisville one of recent years.
That's the one.
Removed.
Was that the one against Memphis State?
No, 2013 against Michigan, as a matter of fact.
Is that the one where they considered Rick Pitino had?
Yeah, something
Okay.
like that, yeah. So, all right, so let's move into let's keep it with the teams and let's go to our Cinderella teams. I don't know if you did, but I had a hard time finding some, but I was able to locate a few. So let's go. Let's go with your number 5.
All right, I'm kind of curious to know what our friend Isaiah would have said where Steph Curry went to, but his college is on my list at number 5. They were a 10 seed, Davidson. I remember that game because I remember that season because my brother was so hyped that they were going to the Final Four. Wisconsin was going to the Final Four, and guess what didn't happen? But Davidson was a 10 seed. They beat, in order, Gonzaga, Georgetown, Wisconsin, and turned around and lost to Kansas in the Midwest Final. And I think that was a close game too.
No, actually, I got that 08 team on my. It's my number 5 too. I have it there. So yeah, the 10th seed going as far as they did, like you said. So you're number 4.
My number 4, to me, is the lowest seed that I've got on here, and it's funny because it's a Cinderella team, but it's also going to be it's going to show up again in my moments, my top 10 moments. And that's the 1998 Valparaiso Crusaders. They were a 13 seed. They beat Ole Miss and Florida State, and then end up losing to Rhode Island in the Sweet 16. But everybody remembers Valparaiso, where they had Bryce Drew. Everybody remembers Bryce Drew hitting that shot against Ole Miss to send Ole Miss home in the first week, and that was the start of the 4-13 games, or it used to be the 4-12s, but for some reason I think at that time it was the 4-13s.
Yeah, they've been changing that around so much lately.
Yeah.
So we're at number 4.
Yep.
My number 4 team is, I believe, the furthest 11th seed to go, and that's the 2011 Butler team. I want to say they're in the championship game, but I could be wrong. I think maybe they're out of it.
No, I think I forgot. I missed that one. I think that was the final champion. I think that was Butler had played what, Wichita State or something.
Yeah,
No, they didn't play Wichita State, but I missed that one. I don't know how I missed that one.
Yeah, they I was quickly doing it, and let me see here. 2011, who was in that one? Yeah, it was UConn versus Butler. So Butler had a chance to.
Okay.
Yeah,
that was a Kevin Ollie coached UConn. Or was it Calhoun? Was it Ollie?
No, it was Calhoun. It was Calhoun.
Still Calhoun?
Yep, it was Calhoun. All right, so you're number 3.
I love this team. I don't know why I love this team, and they're the team that gave the scare to my number 5 team of the best teams in the best men's championship teams, but everybody remembers it for a different reason. Everybody remembers 1990, where Bo Kimball, one of the first players to die on the court.
Oh yeah.
And Hank Gathers, every time he shot his first free throws were all left-handed because Bo Kimball shot left-handed.
Nope.
But Loyola Marymount was an 11 seed. They had beaten New Mexico State, Michigan, Alabama,
Yep.
and lost to UNLV, the eventual champions in the Western Finals. That team was. I think everybody in the country was outside of Las Vegas was rooting for Loyola Marymount.
Yeah, I would believe you're right. A lot of people like the underdogs when it comes to the tournament. So, my number 3 team was a 15 seed. I thought I wrote down who they beat. Um, you know, but it was the 2013 Florida Gulf Coast team.
Oh, I love that team.
Yeah.
They lost. I think, if I'm not mistaken, they lost to Florida.
Yeah, possibly. So, all right, your number 2 team.
That was a good squad. That squad. If it had gotten a push like every other squad does, I think that team wins team wins the tournament. But I really like that. And Gulf Coast, I think Florida Gulf Coast was down Venice. I think it was Venice or Sarasota. I can't remember which. I know it was only like a couple hours. It's like a 3-hour drive from Gainesville.
Yeah. All right, your number 2 team.
My number 2 is it might be the second furthest because of my missing of Butler.
We all miss one once in a while.
Yeah, but I went with a team that eventually lost to the eventual national champions. Just you have them on your list. They lost to the Brandon. They lost to the eventual national champions. It was the George Mason Patriots. They were the 11th seed. They beat Michigan State. This is a murderer's row. Any team can get through this should win the championship. Michigan State, North Carolina, Wichita State, Connecticut, and then lose to the Gators in the Final Four.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
That was a tough team to play.
All right, my number 2 team has been the darling ever since they made their little run a few years ago. I thought I wrote down the year, but I guess I didn't. I think it was 2018. I think 18 or 19. It was before COVID. It could have been after. It could have been 2020 or 21. That's the Loyola Chicago, the 11th seed. They just ran through everybody. Ended up beating the number 1 seed Virginia on their road to the Final Four.
I couldn't remember who they were. I was looking for it. That's the only team that's ever beaten a 1 seed.
No. Well, okay. But they were the 16 seed.
And they were a 16 seed. And they would have been a 1 seed. They weren't?
No.
Were they part of the play-in games?
Okay, now I gotta look them up here.
Because I remember a 1 seed losing, and that was Virginia.
Yep.
And they lost in the first round, and I couldn't believe that they lost in the first round. That was I think that might have been a play-in game going to Virginia, because that was Tony Bennett's Virginia team that was expected to win the whole thing.
Yeah, but that was not the Loyola Chicago team.
No.
So, but all right, let's get to our number 1s here.
My number 1 is my number 4 from the NCAA championship games, championship teams. Again, they were an 8 seed. They were an 8 seed going into the tournament, and at this time, when you listen to the schools that they beat in 1985, you beat a Michigan squad who was getting ready to make a run themselves with Glenn Rice. You got Maryland, who had at that time had Len Bias. You had North Carolina, who had just come off of 1 year removed from Jordan leaving. You've got Georgetown, which has got Patrick Ewing. I mean, they became a championship squad. 1985. That's still, like I said earlier, they're the highest seed, the lowest seed in NCAA tournament history to win a championship.
All right. So looking at it because
But Illinois is actually a good school.
yeah, they got I'm just looking at it because if that's the case, I wrote it down wrong. But I thought that because my number one collabs. Yeah, I think they came out of the 7th seed because, as we said before, Google's our friend.
Google's our friend until it doesn't want to work for us.
No, because when you Google NCAA March Madness 16 versus 1, who beat the who won, it pops up in 2018, which I think we had the right team. It's Virginia lost.
They lost to University of Maryland, Baltimore College.
That is my number one team because, again, what was the record beforehand? It was anyways. I think it's like 251 to 1 that but the Maryland Baltimore College being a 16 seed to be the first and only one as of today to upset.
It's happened twice.
It happened twice?
Yeah. It for on here it says no, I'm sorry. No, it's only once.
Yeah, it's only once. Yeah. So.
Yep, it only happened once.
Yeah. So, but that is.
I forgot all about that team.
Yeah. Well, I thought it was a little Chicago too because I remember not making a run, and so that's why it was kind of thrown. I was like, okay, maybe I missed something here, but. So that's our Cinderella teams. Let's go into our top coaches, top 10. We did a top 10 list here, and we did intertwine them, women and men. So we did, miss out on anybody. So we put both of them on here. So you're number 10.
My number 10, actually, my number 10 and number 9 are kind of a homers. Kind of homers. I went with a guy I believe, if I'm not mistaken, had won a national championship under Rick Pitino, and then turns around and wins 2 college championships. Homer pick. And then now he went on to coach Oklahoma City and is now in Chicago. And that's Billy Donovan. 386 wins, 4 Final Fours, and 2 championships back to back.
Yeah, no, that was a good one. That I like that. Well, my number 10, you just kind of named him. At the time, before all his allegations, was probably one of the coaches that everybody wanted to play for. There's a few on this list that everybody wanted to play for, but and they still might want to play for him. Rick Pitino. In 35 years, he's gotten just under 700 victories. He should get that this year. I think he's still coaching. I thought it said it was. But Rick Pitino's number 10.
I know his kid is coaching too, Ricky.
Well, yeah, his kid was coaching Minnesota.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah. Was. Yeah. All right, you're number 9.
My number 9 is kind of a homer pick for both of us, considering where we met.
Yep.
And that's in Iron Mountain. Michigan State, if Michigan State doesn't get Tom Izzo, Michigan State doesn't win a national championship. He got 1 championship against my Gators, and that bothers me. It's so terrible. And that's when we had Lon Kruger in Florida. But 412 wins, 6 Final Fours, and 1 championship. I'm sorry, but when you've got the Flintstones, when you got all those kids coming from Flint to play for you, But he's one of those coaches that I haven't been blessed enough to meet him, but I've watched enough, and I'm proud of the fact is I was born in the same hospital as he was. You went to the same school as he did. But that's a guy that players would run through walls for because he's a stand-up guy. Tom Izzo is an amazing person. His work ethic, but his charisma, but his compassion is one of the best I've ever seen.
Yeah, he's one of the coaches I left off. But yeah, he definitely is another coach that, he's got the right team around him. They're ready for the NCAA tournament. So I'm going to turn the clock back a little bit here more. My number 9, Herb McGee. He amassed 1,444 college victories in 54 years.
Holy hell.
So, you're number 8.
Where'd you find him?
Looking.
I went with a guy, another coach that players would run through a wall for unless he's got you by the throat. It's amazing to see what he does, and you think he's kind of psychotic, but actually, I don't know if you've ever met Todd Lindemann. He played for North Dickinson.
Okay.
7'4", decent friend of mine. Went to Indiana to go play for Bobby Knight. Again, it's Bobby Knight. It's one of those guys. If you wanted to play, when we were growing up, if you wanted to play basketball, you went to Indiana, you went to Michigan, you went to Kentucky, but you went to the Duke, North Carolina. But yeah, when you got a guy who's got 902 wins, 5 Final Fours, and 3 championships, it's crazy.
Yeah, no doubt. That is one guy. For me, another guy that some people would love to play for, and I think we've named his team a couple times here, is Roy Williams. I think is another guy that everybody definitely would like to play for. You're number 7.
Oh, my number 7 is your number 8.
You can go ahead and unplug me if you need to.
Unplug you? I don't need to unplug you.
Oh, we got somebody working here. Oh, you're number 7?
My number 7 is your number 8. When I thought of this, it was Roy Williams. It was easy for me to write down names for some reason. When it came to top 10 college coaches, it was easy. 675 wins, 7 Final Fours, and 2 championships. Yeah, it's pretty. His resume keeps speaking for itself, and I still think he's at North Carolina, isn't he?
I believe so.
Or is it Herbert Davis?
I don't know offhand.
I don't remember.
We'll look and see. So my number 7 is the first women's side I'm going to put on here, and that's Gina. She's the UConn coach. I can't pronounce her last name.
Oh, Gino Ariema?
Yeah. She's my number 7. I mean,
that's a he.
I'm sorry.
He coaches the UConn women's team.
Yes, it's a he. You're right. All right, you're number 6.
My number 6, we've already talked about him, and not in a good way, I guess, for you. But when you see, I think he's, if I'm not mistaken, he's the first person to take 3 different squads to 2 different Final Fours.
Yeah.
He took him to. I think he took Kentucky to 2 Final Fours, Louisville to 2 Final Fours, and who's the other 2? It was Kentucky, Louisville, and smash! I can't remember. But that's Rick Pitino. I can't remember who the other 2 Final Fours. 616 wins. Again, 6 Final Fours and one championship. Because I think he had his one from Louisville taken away from him.
Yeah. Was it Providence?
Yeah.
Was it Providence?
Yeah, because he had Billy Donovan on the squad.
Okay.
Yeah, it's Billy Donovan. It's Providence. Providence was his first 2, then Kentucky was the second 2, and then Louisville was his second. Was his last 2.
Yeah. Okay. So that was your number 6, which was my number 10. My number 6 is another women's coach. God, I thought I wrote down the names, but Tara Van Devers.
Okay.
She has a 1,157 victories in 43 years. So that's my number 6.
Where's she at? Was she at Louisiana Tech?
I
I
believe
can't
so.
remember.
So,
But yeah, my number 5 is your number 7.
okay.
It's Gino Ariema. I looked at UConn. I don't think of men's basketball when I think of UConn.
Stanford, she's at.
Stanford. I don't when I think of Connecticut, I don't think of men's basketball. I never have. It's funny because Ray Allen came from UConn. Kevin Ollie played for that UConn, the same squad that Ray Allen played for. But when you look at Gino Ariema, and he's still there, so my numbers aren't completely up to date either.
Yeah.
With 804 wins, 13 Final Fours, and 7 championships, it's crazy.
Yeah. My number 5, another guy that I think a lot of players, if he calls you, you're committing right away. And that's Dean Smith. I think a lot of people back then are gonna. That phone rings, you see Smith's name and hear his voice, you're gonna commit. So Dean Smith. Yeah, you're number 4.
I think we're looking at each other's who's next on my list, because I've got Dean Smith as my number 4. It's crazy. Just think of the Hall of Fame teams and I mean when I say Hall of Fame teams that he's had. You can put any one of these players on any teams between Vince Carter and Antoine Jameson and Eric Montrose and Michael Jordan, Sam Perkins, all those things. You put them in an NBA Live game and put them in and make them a created team and put them against everybody. That team can go 82-0 without a question.
Oh yeah.
With what Dean Smith had on his starting lineup and what he was on his bench.
Yeah. No, you're exactly right.
And the thing is, Dean Smith had when he retired, he had 879 wins, 11 Final Fours, and 2 championships, which should have been a whole lot more.
Nope, you're exactly right. So my number we're at 4. My number 4 guy, I'm just looking to make sure. I thought I had his team down. But it's Harry Statham. 1,122 victories in 52 years. And I believe he's still coaching today. If not, then he retired. So that's my number 4 guy. Who's your number 3?
I'm going to guess right now that our top 3 are the same top 3.
Possibly in different order.
I'm willing to make a bet on this. Unlike a certain couple people from a certain other channel, I will put my money on my mouth. This is one guy who just retired, as in last year, just retired. This is one guy that became friends with Jim Valvano because he knew what he needed to get Valvano out of bed in the morning. This is the guy who probably had the most hated college player in college basketball history. And the fact is that he loves being named that, which makes it even worse. And the guy got in onto the NBA the Winter Olympic Dream Team when he shouldn't have been, and it should have been Shaquille O'Neal. Everybody and their mother knows that it should not have been Christian Laettner.
It should not even have been a college player.
It should have been. It should have been Shaquille. I'll be honest. It should have been Shaq. But to see what this man has done and him only retiring last year, it's crazy. So if Mike Krzyzewski's not on this list from Duke, 927 wins, 11 Final Fours, and 4 championships, this is a terrible list if he's not on this list anywhere above 5.
Yep.
If he's above 5, this is a great list. If he's below it, you don't know what this is an Isaiah list at this point.
Yep. My number 3, we talked about him a little bit ago with our teams. 10 national titles. Another guy that, if he's not on your list, might as well just throw John Wooden.
Yep.
All right, you're number 2.
Well, that means my 3 and your 3 and my number 1 are flipped. Because I believe the greatest coach in women's basketball history, as much as I hate the school, you have to put respect on that name. And the respect starts at the top. And to think about it, Dawn Staley replaced her at Tennessee. Dawn Staley, I believe, is there and replaced her and hasn't missed a beat. But you get 1,098 wins, 18 Final Fours, and 8 championships at the University of Tennessee. And Pat Summitt doesn't come out of your mouth saying that she's one of the best college coaches, period. It's a bad list. You don't know what you're talking about, but it's got to be Pat Smith.
Pat Summitt, you mean?
Why did I say Pat Smith? Pat Summitt. Thank you. I got Dean Smith and Pat Summitt, and they're not even close to each other on the paper.
But you're right. That's my number 2 is Pat Summitt. You can't say women's college basketball coaches without her.
Right.
So your number 1, I believe you have already said, is my number 3.
I've already said it. I've said it. Matter of fact, I think I've said it a couple times. The man wrote a book. The man wrote a book about college basketball coaching, and this is the person who were all his teammates. And I've never heard a bad word about this coach ever. And this guy these guys wouldn't run through a wall. They would fight a war for this coach.
Yeah.
And it's John Wooden, 664 wins. Okay, that seems small, but the seasons were small.
Yeah.
But 664 wins, 10 championships, 7 of them consecutively, and 12 Final Fours.
And I believe also 2 or 3 undefeated seasons in there.
Between 63 and 70, there was like an 88 game winning streak in there.
Yeah. So for me, the coach has done it all. 1 gold medals, 1 titles. I don't think he's won an NBA title, and I don't think he's ever thought about coaching the NBA.
Ever. He's never wanted to go.
But he's sure has coached a lot of NBA talent. And I think wasn't it recently within the last 5 years, like his whole team entered the draft and they had to start fresh and still or was that Kentucky?
No, that was Kentucky. That was Kentucky under Calipari.
Yeah, okay. But anyways, Coach K, I mean, what can you say about him? The guy's done it all. The guy's coached it all. And definitely if he was one that, I mean, just think of the connections. If you were undecided, Coach K calls you and you're still undecided, he hands the phone over to any one of his Duke players.
Yeah.
They're like, hey, you need to come to Duke. You're jumping. So.
Oh, yeah, without a question.
All right, so let's wrap it up here. We'll probably go into a little bit of OT here. Top 10 NCAA moments. And again, this is another one we could kind of combine the women and the men's.
Oh, I don't think I have a women's.
I have one.
Oh, do you? Holy smokes. Yeah. That's better than me.
So, and I kind of, a couple of them I kind of just grouped in and just, made it a moment but anyways, we'll get into it. Your number 10.
My number 10 is from 2010. It's where Jermaine Wallace from Northwestern State, a 14 seed, with a last second shot, beats Iowa with a 3. At the time was a 3 seed. So that's a first round knockout by a 14 seed.
Oh, definitely like that. My number 10, and I'm going to go kind of generic here, because any team that goes undefeated from game one to and winning the whole thing, I give them props. So my number 10 moment is any team that went undefeated. So you're number 9.
My number 9, and I don't remember why. Okay, I do remember. Was from 2005, where we're a 14 seed. I love these 14 seeds.
Oh yeah.
I'm getting all ready for. At this point, I want to get into. I want to really get into a March Madness bracket. But in 05, a 14 seed Bucknell beats a number 3 seed Kansas, 64-63.
Like it. My number 9, we brought it up because I asked about one team. I think we brought it up in another area too, but the no timeout call by Mr. Chris Webber.
Oh yeah.
And he ended up doing it twice because he did it once in the NBA too.
Yeah, he did.
But yeah, the no timeout for Chris Webber. Big Dog Gray's chiming in. He's going with his coaches. Smith, Summit, Wooden, Coach K, Van Deer, Jim Plain, Callahan, Gino, Stinger, and Rope. Yep. Leitner hitting that last second shot. Yeah, we'll probably be getting into that one. So you're number 8 there, Tim.
My number 8, I brought him up in our Cinderella teams. Was the 2006 George Mason beating the number 1 returning, defending, undisputed UConn Huskies.
All right. My number 8, dug a little bit. I think this is the oldest one I have. Yeah, it's the oldest one I have. But the guy went almost perfect in I thought it was a championship game. I could be wrong. But he was 21 of 22 scoring. Bill Walton in 1973. So
yeah, that I don't know if that was championship, but
yeah, I don't know either. But to do that,
yeah.
And granted, it was all inside, so it wasn't out shooting
Right.
the threes and stuff. So you're number 7.
Mine another 2010. I don't know. I like 2010 for some reason.
Oh.
We're a 9th seed Northern Iowa. Ali Farkamenesh. You try to explain that. We're trying to say that name 20 times.
Use that in a sentence, please.
No, I'm trying to. Hit a last second shot against number 1 seed Kansas.
Yep.
That's where I think Kansas was projected to win the whole entire thing, and then they get knocked. Knocked out.
Typically back then, when Kansas is in,
right,
they're projected to win. So, my number 7 we're at. When I was looking it up, and this was the headline that I won't say the name right away, but in 2001, the headline was called Bank and made the shot from half court, and that was Jalen Suggs from Minnesota, but he was playing for Gonzaga. But Jalen Suggs, the headline was Jalen Suggs called Bank, wins the game from half court.
Jeez.
So, or else it would have went into OT. So he just throws up a prayer. Why not? So you're number 6.
My number 6, which is really funny because I remember this game and there was 4.8 seconds left in the game between UCLA and Missouri. And I'm like, okay, you've called timeout. I know exactly the play they're running. And I cannot believe that the play they ran was the play. I'm like, you're going to be covering Charles O'Bannon. You're going to be troubling Ed O'Bannon. But nobody's going to cover that stupid little point guard that's coming out of the backcourt from coast to coast. And you're going to get Tyus Edney. He's going to pull up right past the free throw line. And it's going to win the game. And sure enough, Tyus Edney shoots and knocks out Missouri from inside the 4.8 seconds. Goes coast to coast, lays it up, 4.8. I'm like, are you stupid?
Yeah, I remember that one. My number 6 is the only women's one I had on here. I believe it was the championship game in this year. I forgot to write down the year, though, but it was number 1 Stanford versus number 3 Arizona with about a minute left, they turned into a free throw competition, and Arizona's McDaniel could have tied the game if she would have hit 4 straight free throws because she got put on the line twice.
I
And
remember
she
that.
missed one. So it was the final was 54-53.
Yeah, I remember that.
Stanford. So, all right, you're number 5.
My number 5 comes from 2012. I know mine. This one's not from and I really love Missouri because I did it to him again at number 5. Norfolk State. They were a 15 seed. They were a 15. That can't be right. Yeah, it is right. 15 seed. Kyle O'Quinn. I think that game. Norfolk State was behind in that game by a lot. And what's he do? He ends up turn around, catch it, missed the shot. Turn around, catches the rebound, and puts it back up with that's the buzzer's going off.
Yep.
And he beats Missouri, a 2 seed. And I'm like, how in the world? I don't have that much ice in my veins. Just look at a shot like that, but to throw that thing back up it was crazy.
Yeah. My number 5, when I was doing research, this is supposedly the most rewatched game in NCAA history. March Madness, I guess, wise. And that was 1979, the Bird and Magic game. Supposedly that's the most rewatched game where they just battled back and forth. So, their history goes back to then. So, you're number 4.
My number 4, Greg, is so nicely brought up for me. Now you're going to figure out which one.
Oh.
Definitely Keith Smart. Keith Smart giving Bobby Knight, I believe, his first. No, that's not right. The second. I want to make sure he's only got one. He's got 3. Never mind. I think it might be his second one. His second championship with that last shot. I mean,
what year are we talking?
87. I think it's a second. I think he won earlier in the late 70s.
He won in 81, 87, 76. So we're looking at his third.
So we're looking at the last one. Okay. But yeah, that Keith Smart shot that just it was such an unbelievable shot. It's crazy that it went that way. And I'm not a Bobby Knight fan, but I was at my jaw hit the floor, and I think that's the national championship game.
Yeah, that was the national championship game. Yep.
Yeah, against Syracuse, Jim Boeheim in Syracuse.
Yep. No. What did we say?
87.
87. Yeah, that's Syracuse. Okay. For me, we're at number 4. We named this team earlier. I think in your Cinderella teams, NC State shocking the world and taking out Houston in '83. My number 4 moment. So they weren't supposed to be in it, like you said it, and you get hot at the right time. You don't want to play those teams, and '83 was proving that. So, your number 3.
My number 3, I brought the team up in a matter of fact. I think I brought the whole situation up in my Cinderella. My number 4, when Bryce Drew. I think it was the opening game against Mississippi, where Bryce Drew throws up that 3-pointer out of nowhere. It was one of those that nobody really expected, and I think Valparaiso just shocked the world, and it was crazy. It's unbelievably crazy, but yeah.
My number 3, Greg also hit this one. This comment earlier, the most hated guy possibly in sports history. But again, he's one of the icons when it comes to March Madness. Christian Laettner's 92 free throw turnaround buzzer beater. A lot of people said the clock was off. Clock went off. Laettner traveled. Laettner blah blah blah. All this, but to throw up a game winner like that, prayer shot to win it. much respect to the shot. So you're number 2.
You guys, now I'm thinking both of you guys are looking at my paper because Greg got my number 2 and you got mine at number 3. I've got Christian Leitner. As much as I hate Duke, I hate Kentucky more because of the SEC. I can't stand Kentucky. I've seen Kentucky, and I'll be honest. If I really wanted to play this to the right way, my number 1 moment would be Kentucky, Kansas, in New Orleans, the game I went to. And Kansas held Anthony Davis to no field goals, or he held it under double digits in the first half. But yeah, I've got the shot. You have to have the shot on this list.
Yeah. My number 2 moment in NCAA moments, again, kind of grouped this together because it's John Wooden, 10 titles. I mean, what can you not say? I mean, again, this is probably one of the things, if you have moments on there, even if it's number 10, I mean, he still made your list. So,
right.
John Wooden with those 10 titles and that UCLA team from, 64 to 75. I mean, like I said, you see them on your list, and it's like your schedule is like, okay, how are we going to beat these guys? So you're number 1.
John's not on my top 10 list. But again, you and Greg stealing my thunder again, with Lorenzo Charles and beating a stacked Houston team with Ralph Sampson, Hakeem Olajuwon, and Clyde Drexler. That I love that. I honestly love that documentary they did about that 85, about that 83 team. To me, that 83 team was the epitome of a great team, but they were also they were a team of perseverance. When you're going through the I want to say I get this wrong. It's the ACC tournament, and your motto is survive and advance.
Yep.
That's all you do is survive and advance all the way to the championship game. Yeah, that's a story for anybody who needs to, it can be done. It's a to be done. It's a to be done. It can be done story, and it's a great story.
Yep. And my number 1 moment, I brought him up earlier because I think they made it to the Final Four, and I think they were just moments away from getting into the championship game. But after they beat the number 1 team, Virginia, that's Loyola Chicago, that year that they had, and just put them on the map. Kind of like the Glenn Mason or George Mason, Gonzaga. They get into those lower seeds, and now Gonzaga's top dog. They're getting all the big players. I don't think Loyola Chicago beat that type, but they're in it every year now. Last few years, and they're scary. They'll probably be in it again this year. So, with that being said, went a few minutes over. Again, thank you, Greg, and chiming in. You got a topic you want us to cover? Send them out there. We, I ain't gonna say we're running out of ideas, but it's kind of getting a little harder, but we're making it through. So, Tim, final thoughts.
This is a fun list. This one, to be honest, it was when it came to coaches and teams. I think the teams and the coaches were a bit of an easier team, but the moments were a bit tough because there's so many. To be honest, there's so many, and all you have to do is look at one shining moment, and there's like every time you blink, there's another moment from the past. But I'm looking forward to whose slipper is going to break, who's gonna be the upset specialists in this year's tournament.
Yep. When it comes to NCAA, who knows? We might even have a show dedicated to it. I don't know what we'll do, but hey, keep checking out C2C all week long. Tonight we have Between the Ropes. The crews get back together, talk a little wrestling. Wednesday, we are going to have our In the Den with the Cougars show and Sports Minute. And like I said, keep watching. On Deck is planning to return Saturdays. We're penciled in for either March 11th or March 18th. Kind of get those dates finalized. We got a lot of things coming up. Just got to get the ideas and stuff, and we got some shows brewing. Also, if you look in the corner of our screen, Oregon Cougars football, April 22nd. I think the tentative schedule. I know there's been some conflict, so check us out Wednesday. We'll get you the updated schedule on that. But we definitely J-Mac and the crew's going to get out to a couple practices here, get us some interviews and stuff. So definitely check us out. With that being said, Tim and I'm Big B. We'll see you all next week on another edition of C2C Rankem. Have a good night.